Hey guys, welcome to Pure Fab. This is take two because Dan sucks at being a media guy.
I do not suck!
We had a whole spiel about how this thing deployed, how it came out, you know, and then Dan just got a big old chin and decided to erase everything. First things first, I guess drag it out, huh? Parachute. Everybody packs them differently. We've got a way that works for us. Saved my life 3 times now. So we're just gonna keep going with that. One trick we use is we put a piece of tape on how much lead we want hanging out. That way we have the same amount packed in the D bag, deployment bag, each and every time. But to start out, we've got the chute all dragged out like it was deployed at the track. So what we do is we want to make sure everything is in line, starting from the front. We can feel inside of here and just follow it. Make sure it's not twisted, like right there, there's a twist. Get it back straight, follow it, and then here we can visually see that it's straight. And we follow it, and when we come up to this yellow tab, it should be at the top, 12 o'clock, which it is. So that is going to signify our number 1 strap. So we'll just go ahead and follow this back. I like to separate them with my fingers as I follow them back and make sure they're not tangled, because sometimes some parachutes come out and do some weird twisting. So I just follow it back like this, separating them and overlapping them like they're supposed to be. All right. So now we know what we got going on. There's our top one. Now one of these is always going to aggravate you, and it's this one right here. It's always longer, because if you notice, these 3 here all go to the front of the chute. This one goes into the center of the chute in the back. So it's always longer, and it's always wanting to sag and get in your way. But it shouldn't cause you much trouble. Just get over it. Just get over it. But now that you know which one your top one is, go ahead and grab it, left hand, spread them apart, just like that. I grab this one with my pinky, then I grab it with this one. Then what you're going to want to do go ahead and get this one over here. Grab it with another finger. Now you have, it's supposed to look like a pizza, but you get the idea. Kind of just pack everything, make sure it's nice and straight with each other. Pull out any slack. And then come up in the center of everything, pinch it, and then roll it over. Take this, pinch it together, and then fold it. Make a smaller pizza. When you do that, you take this, bring it up, and just make sure everything is tucked inside. Then you're going to turn it sideways again. Then you're going to fold it one more time. Okay. Some people are able to do this standing up. Some people set it on the ground and do it. But you're going to want to fold it. You're gonna wanna keep folding it back and forth. Okay. Now set that down. And now your chute is folded up and ready to go in your deployment bag. Now make sure your deployment bag string here isn't twisted up, tangled up in anything. Get your deployment bag all nice and opened up. And you're gonna wanna get this all shoved in there. This is always probably the hardest part. To me it is. And yes, it is easier when you have somebody helping you do this. So, get that in there nice and packed. Okay. Now, depending on how long your chute is, this is, I think, the longest one they offer in a single. You got some decent amount of string. You got a zigzag up in here. So, I'm very OCD. This drives me up the wall doing this. But the next thing I do is I come back up front and I reline all my strings again. Because somehow I always end up twisting everything up. Right? Now once you get that, some people do this in a circle. I like to zigzag mine. So I go from one end of the bag, back, and then I go back again. And I keep doing that. Back and forth. But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna take this and all the slack and I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna pack the bag without any tension on it. Some people like the tension. It helps them make sure everything's nice and tight. But when I'm zigzagging it, I'm able to just do it in sections and keep it nice and tight without accidentally pulling it out of the bag. This chute is, you know, I really don't know the footage on how long this is, but it's long enough to where typically I have to do about 1.5 stacks. So, once I get one of these stacks in here pretty nice, we'll show you what it looks like. And it makes sense why I do it this way, because it can't get tangled up. Just because, you know, as you're putting stuff in, it can overlap and create a knot. But when you do it this way with a zigzag, you create a single layer and it's just going back and forth, and none of that's gonna get tangled up. So when it comes out and deploys, it's just zigging out real quick and nothing dragging it, nothing slowing it down. It comes out quick, yanks the bag, deploys the chute. And we've been very lucky with, you know, we've deployed the chute while the car was sideways. It came out, saved us last year, November in Maryland, when we set the record fast. But when we pull it and deploy it on a straight run, the chute never tries to come out and deploy sideways and yank the car. It always comes out straight and deploys straight. So this technique here has worked for us. and this is what we'll continue to use. And then here comes the little electrical tape trick. I know that's how much I want for lead. Put that in there. I always try to get this on the flap side. Throw your flap over and tuck it in nice and tight. There's a packed parachute. We run a CO2 launcher. So make sure, you know, obviously your CO2 is released. This shoots out, deploys it, but make sure that's all the way in. Take your bag, take your little mini chute, push it around. Tuck everything in there. All right. As you can tell, I keep my strings pretty easy to get to. So, you'll want to put your string through. You always want to go to the top to the bottom. While you're doing this, make sure everything's nice and tight, packed in there. Pull that up. All right. Now there's different opinions on this part as well. Some say you want to do the flap that is over your lead, and then the one that's not last. Some people say that doesn't matter and you want to do whichever side your pull cord is on, depending on those flaps. Honestly, I really don't even think about it as I do it, but I always end up doing this one, which has my lead hanging out next. Make sure that's all nice and tight, tucked, tucked. Pop it over. Then take the opposing side, which is our last flap. Make sure everything's nice and tight, tucked again. Pop it over. Make sure your parachute cord, pull cord is pushed out. Put it through. And then when you remove your string, pull it away from your pull cord. This will keep you from accidentally pulling the pull cord out with the string and then deploying your chute or dropping your chute, depending on what style you have. So you pull this out. And there's a packed chute ready to go. And then we always use our safety. You know, you've always got to be corny and have the remove before flight. But if you're anything like us, we have a poop emoji snow cone, ice cream cone. And we just leave that guy in there. So that way we can actually pull this out. Not have to worry about this being in the way. And if we want to remove the whole chute assembly, we can do so without our parachute being released and coming loose. But that's a nice, tight, packed, even chute. And you know, when you get in the process of doing it over and over, it seems to not take as long as that step-by-step did. I still don't like doing them. That's why we have 2 chutes. One's always ready to go. It's called being lazy. Another key tip, cars don't typically run when all your parts are in the trunk. Pretty neat thing, huh? But good news for us is we got the tracking information on our cylinder heads. They just got back from being repaired. Had a little weird incident. We can't find the culprit or reason why it happened for our top fuel hoops leaking on the driver's side head. So we sent both heads off, had them double checked, fixed, repaired, sent back to us. They'll be here tomorrow. Motors could be going back together. We've got, I want to say about 3 weeks until the Hail Mary. That is going to be May 13th through the 16th back in Maryland, where we set the record last year. We're going to go and try to get a 6-second pass off this time, hopefully a 690 something. What's about to happen right now actually is the doors are going to come off the car. The windshield is getting ripped out and we're cutting the cage that's in the car out. It's just made out of DOM tubing. And we're going to put a 25.5 or 25.3 cert cage in the car at a chromoly. We'll probably have a video on that next week showing you some of Kyle's handy dandy scribbles on the floor building a cage. And once we get done with that, while he's working on that, I'll be putting the motor back together. I'll also be rewiring the car. Something we're going to go and try to use this time around is the new MSD 600 CDI system that is plug and play for the Holley Dominator computer. It's very hard to light methanol, especially when you're running so much fuel and so much boost. You lose a lot of energy, you lose a lot of power. So we're going to try to absorb some of that back without having to put so much stress on the components, but just by making it more efficient. It's like having 7 times the ignition system on this vehicle. That's going to be huge. We should be able to just right off the bat just tell it run smoother, or data log should look smoother. There's a lot of pressure and temperatures on this car, and every time we go out we seem to find another sensor that we would have really loved to have on the car that would have saved us from doing any damage or saved us from having a uh-oh or a oh boy moment like we did in Maryland. If we would have had a coolant pressure sensor in our system in Maryland last year, we would have seen that we did have a head gasket issue only at a certain amount of boost, and we were charging the coolant system with pressure. We would have seen that, would have been able to fix it before we actually pushed it hard enough to blow the coolant reservoir and blow water underneath the vehicle. Luckily, we only run water in the car. We don't run any coolant or additives, and that's for the sole purpose of courtesy to the track for cleanup if anything happens, but also that water is much quicker to evaporate and boil off something at 200 miles an hour when the tires are skidding versus coolant being underneath the tire and creating a very slick condition. As a milestone, 3 weeks out, this is where we sit.
You ain't got no heads.
There ain't no heads on that thing, boss. Sign off. Deuces, peace, whatever. Subscribe, like, share. Talk crap about Chris, talk crap about Dan and his crappy media skills. Me and Kyle are the cool guys. But yeah, check in for more stressful and time crunch Hail Mary Derby crap we do every year, it seems like. 3 weeks to race day? Great, let's plan it.
Let's build a whole engine again.
Oh, and we love going to these big events with no testing. Let's just make sure when we go testing before we go to Maryland, we don't run out of fuel.
And it's not the day of, where we have to leave.
It's probably going to be the day of. It's going to be the day of.